Hello and welcome everybody. From my side, it's very exciting to be here and to share the story, what has happened in the last 3 years, which I couldn't have imagined in my wildest dreams. So, okay. I will share lessons learned of one way how to bring this to a global company and how to bring a mindfulness practice in a global organization. I share this step by step. I extract in this short time I have a few important lessons we believe in our team were very important. I talk a bit about measured benefits and the lessons learned. So 3 years back, it was in the middle, at the end of 2012, I found myself, I'm an industrial engineer from Germany. I'm now 17 years with SAP. And about 10 years ago, I found mindfulness found its way in my life. And for the first years, it was a very private thing, but I realized how much it helped me in my role as a program manager running large-scale software implementations, how it helped me to settle myself, to be more calm, to how it shifted the way how I perceived relationships, and on and on. And I came to the conclusion, step by step, I would like to find a way to bring this to SAP. And as Jim said earlier, SAP is a global software company, the world leading supplier of business software with 290,000 customers. We have about 75,000 employees in 130 locations. It's truly a global company. And one other number, so about a little more than 75% of the global GDP is being touching an SAP system somewhere along its value chain. So it's a truly influential company, and it's an engineering-based German company. So that 3 years later, and it was actually not just me, but a few others. When I started this journey, I knew 3 more people who also had a meditation practice over there in Germany. That 3 years later, we are like this, so that we have taught it to now 1,600 attendees, that we have a wait list of 3,000 people. We teach a 2-day class, I talk about this in a minute, that we are building local communities of practice. We will have about 15 practices by year end. We have taught it in 21 locations in 14 countries. And it goes on. So this is, as I said, I wouldn't have believed that this is happening and that I become SAP's first director of mindfulness. I'm still in awe. This is so. Let me extract a few principles, what we believe help. The first is find a leader and start building a community, which means find someone who is able, who believes this, who embodies this, who has an own deep practice, but who is also able to explain it to the company, or explain it to your leadership, but also who is able to gain followers, so he can sell it. And find someone who is willing to be persistent, and it takes some courage. I mean, still today, it's rather an exotic topic in this huge company, and it's not that they're all along red carpets, so you have to really want to bring this to the company. And it's also important to start with a big vision, how this should look like in a few years. One of the parts of the big vision I created was, if I want to roll this out and scale this, I need to have other people around me. I can't do this on my own. So it's about, in the very beginning, attract a team of like-minded people. And luckily, as we have such a big company, there are actually many people who are successful in business, and they have a mindfulness practice. And so some of these people became our first teachers and multipliers. So deep experience, as I said, in mindfulness and success in business, and the language of the company, I think, is one key success factor. And by doing this all around the world, so getting people from different parts, this also helps to bring it into the culture, to shift the culture of the company. Because how do you shift the culture? By shifting the behavior and the mindset of each single person. So if you have multiplier on the ground throughout the organization, this helps. And here's this African proverb: if you want fast, walk alone. If you want to walk far, walk together. Second, create a specific pitch for your organization. And the very first step there is listen, learn to listen. So we all have our stories why mindfulness is helpful, and of course there's a lot of proof, but it's about understanding what are the issues your senior leadership is facing. What do they want to change? Where can it help? So really listen first, and link it to the objectives of your organization. In the case of SAP, this was employee engagement, well-being, change resilience, and creativity. And we made a case for this. Another important point, I believe, is that you speak more or also about that it enhances the potential of your employees and not just to cure deficiencies. So often mindfulness is only placed in the field of well-being. I think it's beyond that. And specifically, if you want to address it to senior leaders who define themselves about the fact that they are stress resilient, they're sometimes not it attracts them not too much that this is all about well-being. And if you tell them it enhances your skill, it makes you stronger as a leader, that you can walk in difficult situations and regulate yourself. This is where I think you get senior leaders better in the boat. And then business language. So I also came to this in retreat centers, and I had my love for the practice, and I had to learn that you have to really make it in a very secular way, that it finds its place in the business. And this is one of the examples I learned. So in the beginning, when I did my sales pitches, I found this picture, I found it great, and went to one of our senior executives and to explain what I wanted to do, and she said, even seeing this picture, I don't want to be in your program. So I learned, okay, my love is not her love, so it's really understanding how to talk to the people that you get them into the programs. I like to speak of the Trojan horse, right? How to shape it and how to label it so that you get it into the organization. Third step, select a strong mindfulness program. There are a few out in the market. And we looked for a program which has a strong brand, which has depth in and experience in teaching mindfulness, and also has a depth in teaching ethics, that there's kindness and compassion involved, that it's not just pure mindfulness, because then it becomes very shallow. What helps in our environment is that it's based on neuroscience and evidence, so that there's a strong scientific explanation why this is helpful. Another point, as I said, we have a global company. We needed a program which supports a global rollout and the teacher training on a global scale, so that they can help us there. And it's close to SAP's high-performance culture, and we heard already with whom we choose. So we choose the program which got developed at Google, and Google's culture in terms of the employees they're having has a lot of similarities to SAP. So SAP, Search Inside Yourself, with Mark and his team became a very strong partner of us, and it was a very pleasant journey. And I can say a lot of the success story I'm telling is because we see that this program is working quite well. So, fourth step, sponsorship. Once you have your team and you have identified the program, how to do this? And I think there are two ways, of course, grassroots, bottom-up, or an executive sponsor. Ideally, you have both. We started in the beginning at SAP with grassroots. Actually, it was the case that I talked to many senior executives and many other people and told them I would like to do this training for mindfulness-based emotional intelligence. And I heard many times almost the same answer. They told me, Peter, that sounds really interesting, I would do this, but the company is not ready. After I heard this number of times in Europe and here in the US, I felt like maybe the company is way more ready than we all know and believe. And so I was lucky that I could bring in Shade Mengtan and Rich Fernandez and Mark Lesser, so many people are actually also here today, to a talk, and to see how many people at SAP down here in Palo Alto are attracted to this kind of things. And hundreds of people showed up, another high number of people were on an interest list since we had a conflict. So there was the first evidence, it's not just me and two friends. Actually, there is a broad interest in the company. And then this was also the group of people we addressed, let's do pilots to demonstrate evidence within the company. And we started pilots here in Palo Alto, in the Bay Area. This is our pilot location amongst the wide SAP world. And then we extended at the pilot headquarters. And actually, so this is a picture from one of the pilots, which I taught again with Rich Fernandez, who was also part of Silly at the time. We did the pilots here in the US, and we didn't know before, is this working within SAP, many engineers, this culture, and we could see the results were really good. Yes, it works. And then I talked to executives in Germany, and they told me, Peter, that you do meditation down over there in the Bay Area in San Francisco. We believe you that this is not working in Germany. So we did another set of pilots in Germany. And so we could see in the US, the overall was 6.34 out of 7. In Germany, the results were actually better. So another aha. So the overall results of all of our pilots were 6.53 out of 7. over a number of hundred of people, and we also collected testimonials. So when a VP at SAP is saying this program may literally change your life, this was a strong case. Pilots. Then we gathered metrics. So we asked people, pretty simple, all via self-report. So the NHA probably wouldn't approve that, but good enough to show that there's something happening in a positive way. So we asked people directly before the class, 4 weeks later, and then 6 months later. And for a number of questions, as you can see, so how they feel their well-being is, their meaning, and how they perceive their meaning in their work, engagement, focus, and on and on. And you can see the blue part is how people reported after 4 weeks, and the green part is how they reported after 6 months. So we wanted also to see, is this longer lasting? Has this a long effect? Is it sustainable? So we could see that the results actually were quite positive, and stress was going down. And then we also asked them, do you have a personal practice? So there were 4 possible questions: no practice, a little bit, most days, or daily. And then we linked again these 9 questions I had before to the level of practice. And there's a strong correlation that the more people practice, the higher they report in all of these measures. So another data point. Here's some of the feedback highlights, so that people felt the company is supporting them, they feel valued, it helps them increasing their resilience, and on and on. And we share the slides later, so you don't even need to take pictures. You can see this. So next step was gaining momentum, collecting data and testimonials, of course. Waitlists, keep it special, but also have waitlists. And this helped me a lot to show that there's a huge demand. As I said, after 1.5 years, we had a waitlist of 1,500 people. And this is where it shifted from a grassroots to a global sponsored program. Today, we have more than 3,000 people on our waitlist. And we don't even do much marketing anymore in the company because it's hard to fulfill. And people already get a little frustrated that it takes so long to get in the class. And we built support groups on-site and internally. And the on-site support group, I mentioned our teacher group, is a very important thing. So to have teachers, to have other people who are in the company. So we have a teacher training we do together with Search Inside Yourself, so that we have teachers all around the globe who are doing this and who then help on-site doing the sustainable practices. We have a virtual practice group where we show, where we exchange best practices, knowledge, and all the communication. This is just a picture. This is how it looks like, where people can, like a social media. It's called Jam. It's a piece of SAP software, of course, that we're using for this, and it's helpful. Yes, and as I said, in the beginning of this year, the shift came that our global, our Learning Center of Excellence said, let's make this a global mindfulness practice, to underline that this is not just trainings, but that we want to establish this throughout SAP as a practice we are doing. So it's centrally funded, it's accessible to all employees, and of course we're building up our capacities to do this since we have many employees. And we're also extending the community of teachers to local mindfulness ambassadors and volunteers. So also to keep the governance, what people can do, that since we are all around the globe in different cultures, that we have an approved set of practices we would like to see within these practices. This is the outlook. Of course, it's always good to have a vision and speak about it. So this is how I wish it will look like about in a year in terms of taught classes and established locations. So we are working on extending the measures for sustainability of the class so that more and more people after the trainings find their way into practice. We are working on extending our community, and we're also working on an extended business impact study to show the results. Here's some data, and this was basically it. Thank you so much for your attention.